Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we're going to talk about Modesitt Jr.'s sci-fi novel Adiamante, a standalone book. So it's one that you can read, and you don't have to read anything else to go with it. It's not a series; it's a standalone. Before we get into the review, though, as always, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when new videos are coming out. Leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys, and spread the word. It helps me out and it's free for you guys, so I appreciate that. Um, Going into the book, um, there's kind of a lot going on here within about 312 pages, I believe the book is. Um, and I think the first thing to do would be to set up the sex of people. Um, you have the demis or the demigods who are sort of like the elite, the leaders of old Earth. Um, Demis is short for demigods. Basically, what they can do is their thoughts, their mind, they can communicate through a web or a link system, a net. So if there's something that you want to say to somebody, but you don't want other people to hear it, and they're not on that net or that link, depending on what channel you are on, because there's different, depending on how important you are, there's different, different levels of it. Only those people will be able to hear you. Um, these are, like I said, where the leaders come in. Your people who take care of all the defenses, the people who really are working to try to reconstruct Earth, the the bioeconomic or bioecology, I guess. Um, so they they keep the lower people of Earth safe at a high cost, though, to them. Um, the second group that comes in are the Cybes, which is short for cyborgs. Um, where they are is they come from a planet called Gates, but they don't originally come from there. What happened is 10,000 years before the novel begins, there's what is called the Flight. There's a war going on. And within that war, for some reason, the Cybes feel they can't win this thing, and they flee and they go to this planet that they call Gates. They basically terraform it to look like Earth, be like Earth, even though they don't know really enough about what Earth is now in the 10,000 years ahead time for it to actually look like that. It doesn't just because you terraform a planet doesn't mean, you know, through its ecology that it's going to form the same way as old Earth does. The cyborgs are very rooted in logic, not so much in emotion. So they see things as black and white, cut and dry. It's not, there's no gray areas for them. Um, so when the main character Ector tells them about that they run under a construct, and what that construct is that we don't threaten, we don't do violence unless we are attacked upon first. And this is kind of, you know, I don't want to say emotion based, but the the Sibes don't buy it, and they're not buying into that. They don't trust Ector. They don't trust the Demis. They hate the Demis. Um, so there's that. The third group is the Drafts. They're the lowest form, and probably from the Old English term dregs, which basically for the drafts, they choose to be drafts because they choose to keep their thoughts to themselves. They're not connected to the web or the net. They don't want to be. They want their thoughts to be their own, not to anybody else. The other thing they lack is there's like an enhanced ability that the demis have that the drafts do not. Um, there's the heightened mode that Ector uses that makes him able to move faster, can be stronger, and it can do that basically like a flick of the switch, basically. The drafts don't have that. They don't have that ability. They can't do it. So that's where they're at. They're protected by the demis, and the demis pay a high price for protecting the drafts. And really, the Sibes see the drafts as more valuable than the demis, which is kind of weird because it's flipped here on old Earth. But the demis kind of see the drafts as just drafts, or that's at least how the Sibes think that demis view the drafts. But that's not how it is. So, the plot of the novel, what's going on? 10,000 years after the flight, which is when this book begins now, is 10,000 years later. The Sibes are on their way back to Old Earth, and they're in a fleet of ships. And basically, I mean, they're coming for retribution. They want what they want retribution for what happened to their ancestors 10,000 years ago. And they want to make this generation 10,000 years later pay for what happened back then. Whether it makes sense or not, I don't know, up to you. But it's up to Ector really to buy as much time as he can before they can attack. And what he does is he's basically bending the construct to as much as he can to sort of try to get the message across to say, like, hey, look, our strength is not your strength. We don't have a fleet of ships. We don't have powerful beams. We don't have much of what you have. But what we do have is we have this group, and we do have technology that you don't know about. And the Sibes want that technology. They really would like to get that technology first, and then slag old Earth, destroy it. Basically, that is their plan. And no matter what Ector tells them, and I mean, he gives them so many warnings and so many different ways of seeing the way things could be, the way that they should be, that, you know, hey, you know, the earth is balanced. If we do too much on this side of the equation, it's going to outbalance it, and the earth is somehow going to have to bring itself back, or we're going to have to bring it back. And I mean, there are mutations of old animals, prairie dogs, which were little things back 10,000 years ago. Now they're huge and dangerous. Norpals, which I still don't even know what those things look like. They're not really described other than they have like razor sharp teeth. And it seems like everything now on Old Earth is basically dangerous. Lecter even takes them on a tour of the ruins of the wealthy and says, this is what abusing power leads to. We don't live this way anymore. This is not the way to live. They used up too much electricity. They used up too much in the way of resources. Could we could live this way, but we choose not to because we want to try to keep the planet balanced. We don't want to run things out, basically. Um, you know, Ector being the planet coordinator, which is like the planet leader, is he lives in like a little apartment type thing. It's not even a house, really. It's an apartment kind of thing. So it shows the difference. But no matter what he explains to them, to the Sibes, they don't see it. And they take him up on one of their ships for a what I'm trying to remember, for a demonstration. That's the word. And what they do is they use their beams, which he can't see the beam, but he can see basically they're cutting a hole into the moon, like a new crater, a lake. in what old Earth humans call the Luna. And Ector thinks to himself, "Oh crap! Now we're in trouble. I have to get back down, and we have to like get all of our systems up and running now." And that's the whole point of buying the time that he's been trying to do, is because a lot of their systems were basically obsolete, downed, and not used for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So now they have to get all these systems back online to try to defend Earth. And basically, in a nutshell, what it boils down to is the Cybes give Ector and the Demis an ultimatum. Here's what we want. And it's basically like a 7 point ultimatum. One of the points is that they want the Demis to step down in power, surrender, give power to the Cybes. We already know that's not going to happen because the Dems don't trust the Cybes. The Demis don't trust the Cybes. Two, a second point, and this is really, I mean, this is probably the hardest. Well, they want the technology as well. And then the third, one of the other points, and this is probably the one that I think is like the definite no, is that all demis are to be forced sterilized, which means that basically they will be wiped out of the earth because they will not be able to procreate. They will not be able to have children. So demis will die off, and it will just be Cybes and Drafts. That's it. So when Ector sees that list of ultimatums, he knows we've only got one option, and he has a sub-commander with him, a Cyb sub-commander, and they're all in basically the control center. And as these beams are coming down, all the demis pour all of their energy into a shield that is to try to cover and protect old Earth from being slacked, from being destroyed. Now it's not going to protect all of the Earth, and eventually the shield is going to wear down. But all of the demis, or at least most of the demis, that is what they're doing, and this is the high price that they pay because most of them end up dying. Probably about half of them end up dying. The ones that are trying to protect old Earth through this net of shields. And but what they're eventually able to do is they're able to take the shields and flick the beams up. So the beams go into the ships, which are made of Adiamante, which is a shortened word here, but it has the same meaning, a hard, unbreakable surface. Well, these beams break that and basically take all the ships apart. And the side that's in the control center can't believe it. She's like flabbergasted. How? How did you guys do it? And Ector said, "We tried warning you. This is, but you didn't want to see. You just didn't want to see." So, themes within the novel, and if you're an L.E. Modesitt Jr. fan like I am, you recognize these right away. Balance is one. Um, Not upsetting the balance. Two, how do you use your power? Do you use it in a right way, or do you use it for violence? He always, I think, L.E. Modesitt Jr. through at least most of the fantasy novels and what I've seen in the sci-fi ones so far is that you don't use your power for violence. Power does not mean you necessarily win. Power just is it's how you use it. It can benefit others if you use it the right way. Another theme that runs across is that words and cities and countries and ethnicities get shortened. Africa becomes Afrique. Um, LA isn't LA like Los Angeles. It's Laella. Adiamante is spelled as you see in on the book title. It's been shortened, as is a lot of other things that are shortened. So, in another pure typical L.E. Modesitt Jr. fashion, there's the series of events, and then that last 30 pages or so. If you saw the the Recluse video I did, the last 30 pages or so is where the big events happen. And then you have a real little tiny bit of happily ever after, kind of. So it keeps you going till the very end. I gave it 5 stars. Once I understood what the Sibes drafts and demis really were, once I was able to work that out in my head and it was explained a little more, things rolled and I understood it. I'm not a big sci-fi fan. Like I'm not big into it at the moment. I'm like still kind of new to the genre, so I'm learning. But once that was all kind of filled in, it just kind of rolled from there. So 5 stars on Goodreads. I recommend it. Again, standalone. So if you're looking for something that you can maybe knock out in a day or two, um, without having to read anything else that's attached to it, this is one that I think you could do that with. Um, so yeah, I recommend it. So as always, until next time, keep YouTube literate. God bless, and please subscribe.